Hello students, welcome to Santi Puja YouTube class. You all know that in class 11 there are 5 units. First unit is diversity in the living world. Under this unit we have 4 chapters. Today we are going to discuss the first chapter, the living world. Before entering into the chapter, it is necessary to discuss about a scientist, that is Ernest Mayr. Ernest Mayr, he is called as the Darwin of the 20th century. He is one of the 100 greatest scientists of all the time. He have a title that is Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. The most important point is he defined the term species. According to him, species means species are groups of interbreeding natural populations that are reproductively isolated from other such groups. This chapter starts with the question, what is living? To know what is living, we have to look for features exhibited by living organisms. That means to understand what is living, we have to look for properties present in the living organisms. Properties like growth, reproduction, presence of cells, so on. These properties are classified into two groups: defining properties, non-defining properties. Cellular organization, consciousness, metabolism, these three are defining properties. Growth, reproduction, these two are non-defining properties. To remember this, I have a trick, that is CM Nagar, Chief Minister. Nagar means city. Here C for cellular organization, consciousness, M for metabolism. N means non-defining property, G means growth, R means reproduction. Defining properties are present only in living organisms, whereas non-defining properties, yes, they are present in living organisms, but sometimes they may be present in non-living organisms also. Example, growth. Growth is present in both living and non-living organisms. Next, defining properties, they are present in all living organisms without exceptions. There is no exception. Whereas in non-defining feature, yes, they are present in living organisms, but sometimes they may be absent in few living organisms. That means they may have some exceptions. Example, reproduction. Yes, reproduction is present in all living organisms, but except few. Infertile human couples, mules, many organisms cannot reproduce at all. Let's discuss all properties exhibited by living organisms one by one. First one is growth. Growth, you know, Nagar, N means non-defining feature, G means growth. Means growth is a non-defining property. Next, MNO. M for mass, NO means number of individuals. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. You all know that both unicellular and multicellular organisms grow by cell division. In plants, this cell division is throughout the life because of meristematic tissues. This type of growth is called as indeterminate growth. Whereas in animals, for growth purpose, cell division is not throughout the life. It is only up to a certain age. That's why this growth is called as determinate growth. Cell division occurs for two purposes. First purpose is obviously for growth. Second purpose is to replace lost cells in some tissues. That means when some damages or some injuries, some accident occurs, when some cells died, to replace them, cell division occurs. If increase in body mass is considered as growth, then non-living objects also grow. It is by accumulation of material. It is called as accretion. Accretion means growth by accumulation of material on the surface. Example, mountains, boulders, sand mounds, all these non-living objects grow by accumulation of material on the surface. We know growth is present in both living and non-living organisms, but in living organisms growth is from inside, that is intrinsic growth. In non-living objects growth is from outside, that is extrinsic growth, called as accretion. For example, consider hill. Because of accumulation of sand particles or soil, it will keep on increasing its size. It is showing growth but from outside. Next property is reproduction. In unicellular organism, it is just like growth, that is by increase in number. In multicellular organism, reproduction refers to production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents. In fungi, reproduction is by producing spores. In yeast and hydra, reproduction is by budding. In planaria, that is flatworms, true regeneration. Even in sponges also true regeneration, that is phylum Porifera. In fungi, filamentous algae, protonema of masses, reproduction is by fragmentation. You all know that in both unicellular and multicellular organisms, growth is by cell division. Observe here, it is unicellular organism. One organism divide and forms two organism. This organism divide and form two organism. This organism divide and form two organism. Just like GP, geometric progression. If you observe here, increasing in number of individuals is happening. That's why it is growth. Here parent is producing two daughter cells. That's why it is reproduction. One cell is producing two cells. That's why it is cell division. In unicellular organisms, growth, reproduction, cell division are simultaneous events. It is also called as mutually exclusive events. Whereas in multicellular organisms, it is not like that. First growth will happen, then reproduction will happen. That's why in multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. I told that reproduction is non-defining feature because yes, reproduction is present in living organisms, but in mules, sterile worker bees, infertile human couples, reproduction is absent. That's why reproduction is non-defining feature. Now I will give one example for this. Carbon dioxide and water in presence of carbonic anhydrase, it will produce carbonic acid. CO2 plus H2O in presence of carbonic anhydrase H2CO3. This chemical reaction is taking place in our cells. In our cells we have this enzyme carbonic anhydrase. But we can perform the same chemical reaction. We can demonstrate the same chemical reaction in a test tube. In test tube means that is outside the body. That is considered as in vitro chemical action. In vitro means outside the body. Without cells, that is a cell-free system. This is isolated metabolic reaction. It is not living, it is not non-living also. That's why isolated metabolic reaction is neither living nor non-living. Yes, it is non-living thing, but this reaction is present in living organisms. That's why according to NCERT, even though it is non-living thing, it is living reaction. Isolated metabolic reaction, not living thing but surely living reaction. The next property is consciousness. It is the technically complicated feature of living organism. It is the ability to sense their surrounding, ability of responding to external stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, biological. Even plants respond to external factors like water, temperature, light, other organisms, pollutants, etc. If you consider the example of sunflower plant, the sunflower always turn towards the light, sunlight, that is responding to light. Even all organisms from the simple prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes respond to environmental cues. Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders in both plants and animals.